Well, thank you for joining, everyone. This is a really exciting panel discussion. It's hosted by APA New York. For those of you who don't know what APA is, it's an organization, it's a national organization helping photographers with connecting with different agencies and webinars and different events to help foster creative talent. We started Her Perspective within APA to really help provide a platform for women, especially, or people who identify as women, to facilitate creative collaborations and to create a safe space where we can have candid conversations about relative topics. This is our first virtual event, which we're really excited about. And so our panelists will be sharing their experiences as both being a mom and a photographer. And, you know, especially in a male-dominated industry, we feel like this perspective isn't really shared enough. And so we wanted to highlight this and talk about challenges, the joys, and the surprises that comes on this journey. Normally, Her Perspective is a in-person event, but of course, since we're in a different time in our life, we wanted to really make sure that people connect. And so normally we have a networking event after the event. In lieu of that, we are going to have a form that we'll drop in the chat box so you can fill out your information and then we can all stay connected. And if you have any questions or if you need support or if you want to collaborate, that will be a great space to do that. If you have any questions during this, please use the Q&A panel for those questions. The chat box is different, so make sure if you have questions to put them in the Q&A, and we will be answering those at the end. And let's see, let's introduce our three amazing panelists. Today we have Lindsay Gallup. She is an advertising photographer based in Chicago, and Lindsay is also part of APA Chicago, which is pretty cool. We have here with us Fiona Eduardo. She is a New York-based team of photographers and film directors, and they're in the fashion and beauty industry. And Elizabeth Karen is a editorial, advertising, and fine art photographer based in LA. And she is also on the board of APA LA. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your Friday to come to this amazing discussion. It's really exciting.
For having us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here.
I personally am excited about this because, you know, I'm going to venture into motherhood. I myself am just curious about what that's like and how you balance two full-time jobs. And we know how much work being a photographer is, and I can imagine being a mother is even more work. So you guys are heroes, and I just want to highlight this. So why don't we just introduce you guys? You guys can introduce each other, and then we will get into the motherhood discussion. So Lindsay, why don't we start with you? Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
How long you've been shooting? How'd you get into photography, and what type of photography that you focus on now?
Sure. Well, thank you for being here. I'm honored to be invited, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm a photographer in Chicago. I focus on, I guess most of my clients are advertising or corporate clients. I've been in the business my whole life. I feel like I have a degree in photography, and you know, left college and started as an assistant, and kind of have been working my way into the business and into my own kind of career. I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm now, as a mom, I have two kids. One is 8. She's amazing. Actually, that's her on the screen when she was younger. And I have an older son who's 12. And now as a mom, I feel like my photography has kind of changed a little bit, where I'm more focused on kids. That was never anything that I really thought of myself in the beginning of my career as a kid photographer, but the more I grow into this role as a mom, and I've been a mom for 12 years, I have kind of become more of a kid photographer. So you can see some of my images here are of younger people. And yeah, I can't remember what your other questions were.
Oh,
but
that was great. I just wanted to just introduce you to our audience a little bit, and you answered all the questions perfectly. I love your bright, beautiful take on childhood. It's wonderful. Makes me reminisce about being a kid.
Yeah. Oh, and then this one here is a new image. This is kind of more of the produce and place. And this is my daughter again. And I just kind of I felt like I should end on this one so we can all see kind of what life is like now, which is kind of, that's what it's like.
Well, that's great. We will definitely love to dive into that a little bit later on. I look forward to hearing your experience. Hi, Fiona. How's it going?
It's
you want to introduce yourself a little bit and just talk about just a little bit yourself? How long have you been shooting?
Sure.
How'd you get into photography, and what kind of photography you're focusing on right now?
Sure. So I think I've always been interested in art. And as soon as I took my first pinhole photo class in high school, I started to get appreciation from people. So, I tried painting, I tried drawing. I never had the patience for it. I was always terrible. But I found something where, like, the thing that I wanted to convey to other people, I was finally able to do it. People enjoyed it, and I took off from there. So I went to school for photography in college. And in my third year, one of my professors told us basically that it's impossible to make a career out of it. So really, really awesome. So I decided to double major in advertising, and I moved to New York, and I actually worked in advertising for 5 years, but I was never happy. It was soul crushing, and every move I made was motivated by money and trying to survive, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I finally made the cut and started doing photo, and I had the pleasure of working with my husband, Eduardo. We formed this duo, and we do photo and video and creative direction and pretty much anything under the sun from start to finish. We do all our own edition, etc. So it's been really fun to be able to grow and explore as part of a duo. And we're mostly in beauty. We do fashion, we do music, whatever we can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Your work is beautiful. I love all the bright colors, and the lighting is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being on this call, on this Zoom chat, I should say.
Thank you so much for organizing it. I think this is so great that we have this opportunity for community, especially right now. I think it's really important that we can connect with other people, and especially as women and especially as mothers right now. I think there's no such thing as lack of support. I think we always need more support. And so I really appreciate being asked to participate. Even though I'm nervous about being in front of the camera, I still am happy to be here.
Well, we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about how long you've been shooting, how'd you get into photography, and what you focus on right now?
So my path is a little bit different than most photographers. I did start getting into photography when I was in high school, but I was also a child actor, and went into theater and then transferred to film, not photography in college, and then went into the film industry working in film development. I worked with first Barry Sonnenfeld, and then David Friendly at Fox, and then Catherine Bigelow, the director, and in doing development. And wasn't for me. After a while, I decided I actually wanted to go then to leave and try to become a photographer, and I just felt like after having the experience as an actor and always having to look for jobs, I wanted something more secure. And so I went into PR and marketing, which in entertainment,
Oh, wow.
representing filmmakers. And then I worked at Lionsgate doing marketing, and then another marketing company. And then I started hiring photographers. And after I started hiring photographers, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I started my career in photography pretty late. But the good news was that I had all these contacts that helped me start out. So I started out doing anything and everything, and then kind of segued into behind the scenes on set, got into the union. So I'm in the Cinematographers Guild from that,
Wow.
from a long time ago, from many years ago. So I started doing on-set photography. I really wanted to do key art, which is now my focus. So that's advertising for TV and film. And I thought that by doing behind the scenes, I could get into that world, but it turns out that's not really the path. It's totally different. And at one point I was doing all these different things, and then I had to choose. So I chose the path of advertising and editorial. And I mostly work with celebrities and advertising campaigns, branching out more into lifestyle right now, which is different.
Yeah.
It's very different. But I just love storytelling. I love doing things that are theatrical, you know, coming from my theater childhood. I love working with actors because it's you get to do like your, you know, mini play productions, and that's what excites me, is theatrical portraits.
Well,
So
it certainly comes through in your work. It's absolutely beautiful.
okay, so these were not, when they took these, they were really not intended to be public. It was just, I was pregnant, and I didn't take anything. Like the whole time I was pregnant, I was working, and I didn't take the time to shoot myself. I was maybe here and there, I would do a, you know, iPhone photo, and I was like 7 months pregnant. I thought, oh my God, I cannot not take I have to take a maternity photo, right? I just have to. So I don't like being in front of the camera. I said, okay, what do I want to do? And I thought it was, you know, my name is Elizabeth. I've always had a thing for, I went to the Renaissance Fair when I was like 5, and I saw Queen Elizabeth, and I always wanted to be Queen Elizabeth. So
wow.
I was like, all right, I'm going to be Queen. And I thought it was hilarious because she was called the Virgin Queen. So I'm like, I'm going to do the Virgin Queen, you know, pregnant. And I went to a costume rental, and it was a joke. It was the day before I was going to shoot. You know, I had my hair and makeup team, and I couldn't fit into anything. So I'm like, how am I going to do this shoot? So I just picked elements, and we shot it. And I had an amazing Liz Bretz. She's been my assistant years ago. Now she's a incredible photographer in her own right. She's absolutely extraordinary. She helped me with it. And then I just put it away. I wasn't going to show it. And my partner at the time said, how could you go to all this trouble and not show it? So
I agree.
I entered it into this contest, and it won. So the ICP first place for self-portrait, which was like, oh no, now people are going to see it. So I didn't really like think things through, you know. So then
That's even better.
I'm like, I have to do a follow-up now that I have a son, you know. And I thought, he's conceived, it was going to be a Christmas card, holiday card. I'm Jewish, so Mary was Jewish. My son was IVF, so it's kind of like an immaculate conception. So I thought it was kind of funny, you know. I just want to always put some kind of meaning, and I like to, you know, have a little bit of a sense of humor about things. So,
well, beautiful. I absolutely love it, and thank you so much for sharing the backstory of these beautiful images. They're so powerful. Aren't you glad you did it?
I am. I mean, he's 3 now, and we haven't done another shoot. I kind of feel the pressure that I should be doing another one. So
you will. We'll support you. So let's just dive into a little bit about more, picking up from where Elizabeth left off. You know, I'd love to hear about, let's talk about actually being pregnant. Lindsay, let's start with you. I'd love to hear about your experience of being pregnant in relationship to working in the industry. You know, did you keep on working? Did you tell people you were pregnant? How long did you work for? And just any other experiences you'd like to share about this?
So I was not a good pregnant person. I was not one of those glowing, loving, pregnant people. I was pretty miserable. I kind of attribute that to the fact that I did hide it from anybody I worked with for as long as I could. I personally was embarrassed. I didn't like being big because it's such a physical job, at least the way that I work. So I didn't want anybody to treat me any different. But I worked through the whole thing. I mean, it became obvious after a while that this was something that was happening. I just chose not to talk too much about it to my clients or to anybody else in the business. I mean, my assistants knew and, kind of were behind me in that and had, I had support from them. But the first pregnancy kind of was a lot easier. The second pregnancy was, I was flying all over the place doing jobs. I had to stop myself from like climbing up on a roof in Utah, trying to shoot for a client. And that was a little like, I really wanted that shot for the job, for the project. And I was like, well, that's, luckily my client was very understanding and he went up on the roof and shot it for me. But
Good.
yeah, so pregnancy was not something for me that worked very well. Even like, I remember fielding phone calls in the hospital from a rep at the time who called me right before I went into labor. And I was like, well, you kind of caught me in an awkward time. So,
oh my gosh.
It's hard, and you don't have maternity leave and you don't have the ability to stop work, and you don't want to stop work. I mean, I work for myself. So, I'm freelance. Like, I feel like a lot of people are. So if a client calls, you do what they ask or you answer their call. So, I just kind of muscled through it all.
Yeah. And would you say that, because you've had 2 children, nothing is the same, but did you have a similar kind of mindset of kind of not telling anyone until it was obvious and kind of just working through it with both of them? Were they similar or?
Yeah, they were similar. I think even like, with the second one, it was, and everybody's different. So, I think even if this wasn't my job, I wouldn't have been that like glowing pregnant person. So, some people are, some mothers are, just have that extra special glow when they're pregnant. That was not me. But the second one was, just the same, maybe even a little bit harder because I knew what was coming. And the first one, you have no idea. You're like, oh, I'll be fine. This will just work and we'll figure it out. And then the second one, you're like, oh shit, that was hard. Now I have to do this double.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
And did you, when you were actually pregnant, I know you were obviously shooting, did anything shift in you while you were pregnant or after you gave birth, like in terms of your relationship to the camera or what you wanted to focus on, or did that come later on?
That definitely came later on. And now I love it. Now it's more of a process for me, and I'm kind of growing into this, and my kids are older even. But now it's definitely something that I've kind of grown into, and I'm much more excited and optimistic about the future and about photography for myself. So, yeah.
Did you experience, and sorry if this is too personal, I'm just also curious, did you go through some sort of a little bit of I don't know if depression is the right word, but a feeling of, you know, maybe helplessness, or you couldn't do what you normally wanted to do, or like what was that relationship like, or experience like?
Well, I think for me, you know, and this, I don't know if it was necessarily part of being a mother or being pregnant, but I let, you know, everybody kind of in my head, oh, you should do this and you should do that and you should do this and you should take these types of pictures. And, you know, I kind of just let all of that in my head a little bit. And where now I'm much more kind of into what I'm doing personally and don't let all of that chatter kind of bother me.
Right. That's wonderful. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that experience. Fiona, why don't we talk to you a little bit about similar things? I'll repeat the question so you don't have to. Just in terms of your experience with being pregnant, you know, and in industry, did you continue working, and did you tell people? And also, I'd love to hear about a little bit about your experience with your husband, and since you guys are a duo, and just what the relationship and the nature of that, kind of how that turned and shifted.
Sure. I had the fortune and misfortune of missing the first trimester. I didn't realize I was pregnant until the first trimester was gone, because we were in the thick of it. It was a really busy time. So supposedly that's supposed to be a really hard time. And thankfully, since I didn't know what happened, it was super easy. So she was a good baby. She was a great baby. And yeah, I worked all through my pregnancy. You know, right before I delivered, I was editing. I was 8 months pregnant, like on the ground on a gravel parking lot, taking shots, trying to get the glasses and the light, you know, the sparkle. And so yeah, like it didn't stop us. If anything, like it motivated us to work harder, because we knew that, as you know, as much as you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, being a freelancer, like with a baby, we knew it was going to be more work, like definitely going to be harder, like exponentially so it was a huge motivator. So hey, like we got to get things cracking, and we got to start working hard, and we got to get more diligent about how we're going to get new work. And the other cool thing was that my husband broke his dominant hand, 3 months before I delivered. So about telling people that I was pregnant, like, yeah, we were very transparent that one of us had a cast on their hand and the other one was extremely pregnant going into things, but we're hard workers and nothing will stop us. So again, it just made us work all the harder to get what we needed done.
Wow. Well, that's good. You know, sometimes when it rains, it pours.
Exactly.
And you know, I know you said you kept on working, but did anything shift in you while you were pregnant in terms of maybe your relationship to what you were shooting, or anything you wanted to change, or do you feel like you kind of kept on the same path?
Well, I think before the pregnancy, we were very excited to say yes to anything. You know, if there was a cool model in town and she was just here for one day, we would make it happen. And we were just very excited to shoot all of the time. And I think we realized that we couldn't work in that same fashion. So we were more considerate about, like, what do we get out of this? You know, like, is this concept going to be something that we're excited about shooting? Like, we were just more thorough about, like, what we would decide to do, what projects we would take on. You know, is this going to help us get to where we want to be? What are our goals? You know, start thinking more like that instead of just shooting. Because when we started out, we shot in our living room. We shot in our apartment. We were like super hands-on, like, oh, it might be cool to shoot through this filter. So it was very experimental. And we started to take it a little bit more seriously and think about, you know, how is this healthy for us? Like, what's the best setup? Starting to try to treat it more like a business. Things go hand in hand. You know, it's not just about the art. It's also about, you know, the business side of things. Like, how is this going to move forward? Yeah.
I think that's one thing that, you know, having a child does make you have to get serious and focused.
Right.
You have another being coming into the world, so things get serious real quick. And Elizabeth, I'd love to hear about your relationship with being pregnant. You know, did you keep working? Did you tell people you were pregnant? How long did you work for until you gave birth? Just some experiences. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I worked until, I think my last shoot was 2 to 3 weeks before I gave birth. And I was like, okay, I'm done. At the end of the shoot, I'm like, I'm done. I can't, I'm too tired. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I had a high risk pregnancy because I was older. had to have 2 assistants at all times. Sometimes where I could have maybe done it with, one, I had to have 2. I couldn't pick up anything over 20 pounds. This was so frustrating. I was so frustrated. Luckily I had an assistant who had this like kind of machismo where he was like, don't do it. Like it wouldn't, like I would like go for it and he wouldn't let me. But I remember feeling really frustrated. Like it didn't feel right to not pick something up, it just to sit there. I mean, I didn't like that feeling at all. But I worked the entire time. I did have, and this is something I'd like to share because I know that other people go through this. Before I got pregnant, I was honestly, at least, I hate to say it, I was working like 10-hour days, 6 days a week, right? I'm a late bloomer in terms of photography. I worked my ass off and I couldn't do it. Like I physically was too tired and it was really hard to let go, and just say, okay, I mean, I have to, I have to take a nap right now. And that was so hard for me. I felt so guilty. I felt like, you're tough, you can do this, but I also didn't want to risk my health or the baby's health by pushing myself too much. So that balance was really hard for me. I worked 2 months after giving birth. I actually got really sick. Here's a PSA. I didn't get preeclampsia. I got post preeclampsia, which is after you give birth. And it's actually one of the number 1 reasons why of maternal deaths. And people don't really know about it. Hospitals don't even know how to treat it. So I feel like I'm a very informed person and I didn't even know that I could get it after I gave birth. It's your body's reaction to giving birth, to being pregnant. And it's high blood pressure that could lead to stroke, heart attack, blindness. It's like horrible. So I was sick in the hospital for a week after giving birth and was just very grateful to be alive afterwards. But still, even then, I still felt like the pressure that I want to get back to work. I want to get back to work. I want to get back to work. So after 2 months, I went back to work. I think it's hard to balance. It's really hard to balance, when you're passionate, when that's your everything, but then you have something that's equally, it's hard, you've never had this before and it's equally as passionate and important to you, and how to balance that. And the thing is, it's not just pregnancy, it's now forever, it's
now
like
forever.
You have to forever. I didn't tell people, I didn't go to meetings, I didn't go to portfolio reviews. I didn't want my first impression to be pregnant. I thought, they're always going to think about me as pregnant, so I tried to hide it. I wear a lot of black anyway, so, try to hide it. At the end of some shoots with celebrities, I kind of felt like, I don't want them to think I'm this big. So I just would sometimes tell them. And then I had a couple really memorable moments where Tori Amos gave me this huge blessing over the baby. And then I felt because I was so I just want to be professional. I'm never going to say anything about it. But then it actually I could have told her beforehand, it would have maybe helped the shoot, because she was so cool about it. But I think this is really important discussion to have. Men do not have this issue. They don't have it, and it's not talked about. And I know when we had our women's event in LA, agents were talking about how it was hard to make the decision whether to send their photographers on meetings when they're pregnant.
Yeah.
I think things are getting better, but it's only getting better if we keep talking about it and having it out there. If we make it taboo, that's not going to help us. We have to normalize it.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm so happy that we have this opportunity and that we should continue. Because the creatives have the same issue. I mean, on the other end, there are women in advertising who are having babies and they have the same issues we have. I mean, and to have that humanity and understanding, you still have to deliver. It's not like you can't deliver. If you're up all night with your baby, I went on many shoots where I had 2 hours of sleep. And you power through.
Right.
You don't
power through.
You power through. What can you do? You still do it.
Did you find yourself, and this is, I'd love to hear from all of you, did you find yourself, like, were there any like tricks or any kind of things you would start to do that would help you, or is it just powering through? I mean, I don't know if you can remember, but
I think you have to compartmentalize.
mm.
You know, you just have to, you know, I love my child more than anything in the whole universe, but I also love my job. And you just have to know that, you know, he's going to be taken care of. I have faith that everything's going to be okay. Today when I work, you know, I have my shoot,
Yeah.
and now I'm shooting, and now I'm a photographer, and that's it. And I don't even think about it, you know, it's just, you just go forward.
Yeah.
Not easy. It's not easy, but it's doable.
No. And Lindsay, did you feel that way with, especially after having 2 children? I mean, what were your things that kind of you knew, especially with the second one, you're like, okay, I know that this works. I know that this, you know, what are can you share some of those experiences?
Well, for me, we tried everything. Like, we were just constantly always like I became the producer of our lives, you know, like if I had a job, I would figure out like, okay, my mom's going to come, or my husband would, you know, take the morning shift, or however it worked. And actually, I kind of reveled in that. I loved being able to think about how I would, or how the production of life went, as well as my job. So that was really kind of fun and exciting part for me. We ended up moving to have like a little bit more of a simpler life, or an easier life. So we didn't have such a huge commute, or the kids could go to school closer. And now, like, the production, and they're getting older, so now the production of life isn't as demanding anymore. But yeah, that was kind of one of the things that I really enjoyed about the kids. And yeah, that was kind of, you had asked earlier, there was a question about like the superpower, and I was like, oh yeah, that was my superpower, was the, you know, figuring out how to manage everything, and how to get the kids taken care of and life taken care of. But we tried everything. I mean, there was sometimes the kids were in daycare, and other times we had babysitters, and other times it was my parents. And you know, it was always a new solution. So
yeah. And Fiona, how about you? Can you just talk a little bit about your experience, maybe some tips or tricks, or how you and Eduardo worked differently, or maybe the same, or what that experience was like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert, and I mean, the industry obviously changes day to day. I mean, look where we are now. So it's kind of hard to feel like a master of any universe. That my daughter's getting older every day, so you know, tips and tricks like patience. You have to be patient, especially with yourself. You have to be forgiving. I mean, as far as balance, some days I feel like I'm more devoted to one than the other. So I think, you know, what's important is to communicate very openly. You know, like we have to give ourselves wiggle room for turnarounds. You know, we have to build time for ourselves. You know, if I need him to take the baby for 4 hours so that I can get the addition done, then that's what we need to do. So it's definitely about ongoing communication. And I mean, we try to do the best we can with that. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. Every day is a different struggle, a new opportunity to figure out how to make it work. But I was an 8-hour a night kind of person before all this. And obviously, you know, I'm not the boss of that anymore. So, you know, like, you figure it out. But I mean, everybody here has the hardest job already. If you can sustain life as a freelancer, you can do anything. You know, there's no challenge. It's a new kind of challenge. It's a new kind of balance that you have to find, but it's all the same principle. If you're that kind of person that can do that, it's just another thing.
I don't know if anyone wants to answer this, and this wasn't actually in any of the questions that we submitted to you guys, but it just reminded me, did you breastfeed? And if so, what did you do on set? Or did you just go and pump, or did you bring the baby and breastfeed there? Or like, what were some of your experiences like? Elizabeth, you're laughing.
I breastfed for 1 week. So,
Okay.
I had friends who had these international jobs where they would fly and pump when they're flying and freeze at the hotel and I was like, oh my God, like I can't think of doing one more thing. Like that's just, I can't. And also, I was like, that would push me over the edge. And also at the time I was sick, and so I couldn't breastfeed because of the medication. And so, and I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, and they said, well, you're going to, it was like, if you want to do it, then you have to. It was really, at the time, it was like the hardest decision I've ever had to make. Like, what do I do? And the doctor was like, you got to do what's going to make you healthy, and you have to take care of yourself. So I didn't.
That's good advice.
I think those are great options. I got to tell you, I'm really happy I didn't, because I don't see how I could have added that stress, honestly.
Well, I think your doctor gave really good advice, because I think everyone is different, and it has to be according to your body and your time and your mind. Did either of you breastfeed, and if so, what was that experience like on set? Or if you want to share, if you don't.
It was no fun. I breastfed and, had to excuse myself. And at the time, so this is like 12 years ago, we didn't have, like, on set, there was no mother's room or anything like that. You could remove yourself to. So you're like in a bathroom or, going out to your car. It was absolutely a disaster. No fun at all. But for me, it was something that I did, and kind of the more I did it, the easier it became. I will add that I never brought my son on set, but he came to the studio with me all the time. So if I wasn't shooting, he was always there with me. He was a really easy baby for that. So, if I had my assistants and we were in my own studio, that was super easy.
Right.
But the second child was a total pain and was not a studio baby at all, and could not go to work with me. So that kind of changed, my opinion. Like, I was like, oh, the second one, well, she'll just come to work with me like the first one.
Right.
No, different babies. Everybody's different. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Fiona, what's been your experience with that? If you want to answer, of course.
Yeah, I still breastfeed. I don't know when I will stop. She's already a year, but let's just see until it gets weird. Let's do it.
Hey, some cultures breastfeed till 9. So
exactly. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, it's really awkward to do on set. Like, I've had V-flats around me before. I've been in the bathroom, people banging on the door. It's like, wow, this girl takes forever in the bathroom. Like, no, I don't have the pregnant belly anymore. So, and it's not like I walk into the room like, hello, so, like it's awkward, but you figure it out. And then we never assumed to have her on set with us. Like, for tests and stuff, we'll bring her, because we don't have, like a daycare or anything. Most of the time is freelance, we're home, so she's with us, and we just get someone to care for her when we have shoot days. And if we're going to have a bunch of shoot days all in a row, we'll get Eduardo's mom from Mexico to come up. So it's like, we know she's being cared for phenomenally well. It's like for everyone all around. But yeah, I mean, if the client is like, oh, where's the baby? Like, we have brought her on set before for clients we're really comfortable with, like, once we've seen how the day is going to be, how many people are on set, etc. But I mean, she's great on set. She's our little assistant. She goes around and collects filters. And she'll see attention.
She's only 19 months. Wow.
Oh yeah, she's
training her young. That's amazing. Thank you. Just 1 second, Elizabeth. Just really quickly to everybody who's listening, thank you so much for your participation. If you have questions, it would be helpful if you put them in the Q&A box. It's just at the bottom. That way we can make sure to answer them all at the end. Thank you so much. Sorry, Elizabeth, I cut you off. What were you?
No, I just saw. I saw one of the questions and about losing a job, and I don't think I didn't lose a job because I was pregnant, but there was a really amazing job that I would have to have traveled at 8 months, and I was really sad to not be able to do that job. And you know, you're not supposed to travel really after 7 months, so there's probably, you know, I do know someone, my friend Karina, who I think she shot after like 2 or 3 weeks of giving birth. I mean, typically there's you know, like I'd say 4-month window where you can't travel, I'd say approximately. But in the long scheme of things, that's not much time.
Right.
When you think about it. I do think that if you do have maternity leave and you have downtime, it takes a lot longer to get the momentum to go back like that it was before.
Oh, interesting.
And I did see how it was like, you know, it took a while to get back up because you're sort of out of, you know, out of the loop. You're not doing, if you can try to keep up the marketing, you can try to keep it up, but I mean, right after you've given birth, it's not really where your head is in, you know, your spaces. So I think it's delayed. It's a little bit delayed. You can do as much as you can beforehand, but still there's always going to be a little lag time.
I'd love to actually talk a little bit more about that in terms of just like how your mind is, you know, I mean, your body is going through such a change, you know, it's a massive physiological, mental change. So what was your relationship with photography like? I mean, were you more inspired, less inspired? Did it go in waves? Did you feel angry or excited, or like if you can remember? I know, Lindsay, it's been a little bit of time for you, but I'd love to hear from all three of you just kind of what your mind was like and what, you know, how your thoughts were, and if you felt alone or if you felt supported, or if you could just talk a little bit about that. Elizabeth, if you want to continue.
I really wanted to go back to work.
You did. Yeah.
I did. I love, you know, I love that time, but I didn't, you know, I had an unusual situation where I went back to work after 2 months, but then after a few months later, I took like 3 months or 2 months off.
Okay.
And, you know, it's true, you never have that time back, but honestly, I think 6 months old is more fun than like the beginning. You know, I would have liked to take it off then versus the beginning.
Yeah.
But it does give you a shift. You know, I remember walking around the block with a stroller and went, oh my God, I'm a stroller person now. Like I'm a stroller person. I didn't expect to feel like, oh, now I have a different identity, you know?
Yeah.
It was really strange. And then everyone, whenever they see you, they go, how's the baby? And, you know, that's nice, but it's also like, well, I'm also still a person. Yeah. I'm not just a mom, you know? I don't know. I'd like to hear how Lindsay, because you said you changed a little bit your focus.
Well, for me, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. No, of course. It's just in continuation of how we've been talking, and just, you know, your mental state changes at least a little bit when you give birth, and just kind of what you were thinking about when you had a baby, and were you excited to go back to work, or anything that shifted or anything that came about? And also, you know, Elizabeth made a good point, is like your identity, you know, how did that change, and how did you grapple with that, perhaps?
Right. So I really wanted to go back to work. I was the same. Like I wanted to be the photographer, and the mom was like kind of not really my secret, but like that was another part of me, because you know, it's a hard industry to be in, and then to admit that you're kind of juggling all these things, you know, is very difficult. So I was very anxious to get back to work. As far as my photography goes, I became uninspired completely to do anything. It was all work related and you know, getting jobs and, you know, paying the bills, and not kind of feeding my creative side. And that has kind of come in time back. And now for me, it's much more about being creative and accepting the fact that I have kids and I can shoot kids and still be creative and kind of shoot these kids in a funky way. So, but it was like, for me, like, get back to work, you know, and, you know, leave the kids at home. Yeah. And now I regret that, of course, a little bit, you know, but we all are who we are. So.
Yeah. And Fiona, do you have anything that happened to you? I mean, of all three of you guys gave birth most recently. So I don't know if you're still going through a shift or if you bounced back right away or.
Well, photography is our only source of income, so we never really had a choice. It was pretty much, if we want to live, we're going to have to get back in it. So we were right off, you know, back to work as soon as we could. But I think like the biggest shift was like the ability to say no. When right after I gave birth, we had a project we were editing that was really involved and really hard and difficult. And a lot of the things that we tried to get clarity on up front, it all got lost. So it was really difficult. And then we also both got full-time job offers by a client of ours. So it was going to be a lot of money and benefits and protection. And we had like a lot of really hard decisions to make really early on. And of course we decided not to do that because like the idea of my brand new baby being away from me full time. And I just, you know, like I've made so many decisions in my life trying to be stable and, you know, like do what I thought I was supposed to. And it's all made me desperately unhappy. So I think the biggest shift was like, you know, I'm just going to do what feels right and where I think I'll find my happiness. And if it all comes crashing down, we're going to figure it out because we always will, you know, like I know that if everything goes wrong, we'll figure it out, you know, we're going to get through it. So I think that was the biggest shift, you know, like if someone comes to us with something and I don't feel like it's the right thing to do, I don't feel obligated to say yes anymore because I've got more important shit to deal with, excuse me. Yeah. You know, like now I have my daughter is the most important thing to me. And, you know, I want her to grow up in a household where her parents teach her, you know, what really matters, you know, to follow her dreams, to withstand everything. And, you know, it's just really important to me. So, you know, it was all good lessons.
Yeah.
I want to just add, I think the biggest, and I just thought of this right now hearing you speak.
Please.
The biggest lesson I've learned from pregnancy and having a child is having more faith. You know, I and especially right now, which is such an uncertain time. You know, when you're pregnant and you have so many questions and doubts and there's so much uncertainty, and I had to keep saying, you know, I'm just gonna have faith that everything's gonna work out. I'm just gonna have faith that everything's gonna work out. And I'm not like a super religious person, you know, but it was something, it was the only way to keep going was just to decide I'm gonna just have faith that everything's gonna work out. Yeah. And then I nearly died. So then, but then it worked out, right? It worked out. So
you are here.
You know, so you know, so like, you know, right now things are so uncertain right now, and I just have to keep going back to that where I'm just going to, and I have noticed that every time I get very stressed out and anxious about the future, about jobs or whatever, and then I worry and I worry and I worry, and then it just gets worse. But if I do let go and I like say, okay, I'm going to let go and I'm just going to work on what I want to do right now. The second that I do the thing that I really am excited about, I swear, like I get jobs. I don't know, somehow the second you let go of that, you know, fear, like it just kind of happens, right? Wow. And I can't say that I go through cycles where I'm, you know, where I get to, and then I'm like, okay, stop it. Just do your thing and it's going to be okay. And I know it's really hard right now. And I'm not a preacher. I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to convince anyone, but I do think that when you are put in a situation where all you have is faith, that's all you have, you know, it teaches you like, okay.
Humility. Yeah, that's beautiful. And, you know, that's a great segue just into a little bit about our current life right now. I mean, we're in a much different situation than we ever thought we'd be in. And, you know, I think there's so many shifts that we're experiencing, and to be a photographer, to be a mother, and now to be at home with your child full time, that's creating a lot of stress and uncertainty in and of itself. So I'd love to hear from the three of you just about maybe what, you know, how COVID is either, I don't want to say harming or helping, but, you know, what your experience is like having a child during this time, and if it's any change or if it's a huge change, or what you're doing, or, you know, how you're trying to achieve balance. Lindsay, would you like to start?
Sure. So my kids are 8 and 12, and there's no more school. So I have become, myself and my husband have become the teachers and the educators, and so that has become a huge time issue for us. Then as well, like photography wise, all of these pressures and kind of expectations, you know, keeping up, and you know, what's going to happen on set, and all of these things when the world starts opening up again. We need to be prepared for all of this. So there's just all of this kind of new learning curve, webinars, all of this stuff takes so much time. And, you know, then the pressure of being a photographer and kind of, you know, having the website and all of that stuff doesn't go away. And all of, like, now the time is just kind of sucked away in a weird way. When this first all started happening, I thought, oh, well, I'll finally have time to work on my website, and I'll finally have time to do all of this shit. And now I'm like, oh my God, I don't want, you know, like give me another couple weeks, because I'm still not ready.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, I have really kind of found photographing my kids way more fun. They have kind of a lot, like, they're around, so, and they're more into letting me photograph them, and you know, they'd much rather take a break from their school and, you know, stand in for a little photo shoot for me. So in the past, you know, kind of setting up photo shoots with kids has been difficult, because everybody has so many activities and they're in school and you can only shoot certain times. And but now, like, at least my kids are a little bit more available. So that's been kind of fun and kind of freeing. I've never really shot, I mean, I've shot my kids, but not in our house really. And kind of, you know, I shoot for work, and home I have my iPhone. And in a weird way, I've kind of taken my camera back out and kind of gotten used to shooting and not caring about all of the, like, I don't need a perfect set, and I don't need perfect styling, or, you know, hair, makeup, and all this stuff. Like, let's just shoot and have fun, which I haven't done before. So that's been kind of
freeing.
Yeah. It's been freeing in a way. Yeah.
It's a shift, and I guess, you know, we're so used to being focused on this perfect set. In a way, it's kind of, I think, a challenge. I think photographers in general are perfectionists, you know, because we have to make it perfect. And so in a way, it is a bit of a positive challenge to kind of let go of that, and also, you know, see your house in a different way. Yeah. Although now I'm now I have to clean everything all the time. So I'm like, oh shit, you know. I know. And Fiona, how are you dealing with during this time with COVID? Are you guys, I mean, are you shooting more baby things? Are you doing test shoots, social distancing safely, or what are you doing right now?
I mean, I don't want to say nothing's changed because like anxiety is like definitely bigger, but no, I mean, we're shooting at home. We've started a still life series, so we're doing more of the stuff, going back to the basics. Like I said, we used to shoot in our apartment, so we're going back to where we came from and like getting inspiration from art and music and movies, and you know, pulling out old work and re-editing it and trying to imagine like all these things that we had that we never did anything with, or you know, like you know, the client picked some, but we had some we loved, we never got to share. So like we're looking at old work, and we're also trying to get more organized. There's always room for that, like looking at our goals that we set for the year and figuring out like what how can we break this down week by week. How can we, you know, try to ensure that Phaedra has like some sort of you know, like schedule, some sort of consistency, because that's something we struggle finding for her with, you know, work sort of fluctuates. We get a ton of stuff and then we're kind of silent. So like we got to figure out how we can separate ourselves to give her some, you know, some sense of what life should be like. Yeah, I mean, we're really trying to take this time to like re-examine our current setup and stay busy and just do stuff. But it's difficult because we're feeling a lot of pressure to share ourselves, and that's never been something that we're interested in, you know, like we're Fiona Eduardo, like people address us often as Fiona because like, you know, we're one name representing two people, which is kind of like a weird idea. But like we'd love to be behind the camera. We're not really influencers, you know, we don't want to put ourselves out there and say like, hi, you know, like this is us behind the scenes, you know, and a lot of people are asking us for that, but it's not something that, you know, it's not what we were attracted to when we came to where we are. So, you know, but at the same time, like I'm an open book, and if I can help, you know, like that's what I love about this scenario is like, if there's something that I can say that's helpful to somebody else, I'm more than willing to do it. I would love to do that. So, you know, I guess finding the balance for that.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah. I know it's such a weird time, and often we don't like to be in front of the camera. So it's like, I don't know, scary. And Elizabeth, what about you? How are you during this time? Like, what are your experiences? Are you working? Are you feeling overwhelmed by being a mother? I mean, what's your experience like?
Well, I mentioned this before the call. I had an opportunity to move during the pandemic. So that took a lot of time and effort and energy. And just like Lindsay in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I have so many things that I need to fix and finish, and, you know, projects that I've had on the back burner that I'm going to be able to do. And I was like so excited for this extra time. And there was like no extra time because you're cleaning groceries, which is like maddening to me, you know, like wiping down groceries all the time. And yeah, like full time, you know, I do have support from my mom, but I had a nanny. We paid her to stay at home for a while. I just had her come back. It was very hard to make that decision, but as a single parent right now, I just can't, you know, work is starting to kind of pick up a little bit, and I have to have some time. Otherwise, I only have nap time. You can't go from 10 hours a day working to nap time working. Like it doesn't work, right? Or just do it, you know, my son was having a hard time going to sleep, and he was falling asleep at 10. And then I would have, I have 10 to midnight to work. You know, that's not sustainable. So I have the nanny now coming back. I mean, I had school before. There's no school, you know, and luckily I don't have Zoom school it doesn't really work for preschool so well, you know. So so what's interesting now, and what I thought we should talk about, is that it seems that there is this idea of shooting at home, clients looking for a photographer. It seems like to me there's different sources now. I think one is called Shoot at Home. I think it's called Shoot at Home. But there's basically it seems like there's this movement happening where there's gonna be some sort of directory of the photographer, their shooting space, who they're quarantined with, and, you know, so that the photographer now also becomes possibly part of the story, or whoever they're quarantined with, part of the shoot. So there's like, okay, so the photographer is now casting, and then also, and talent, which is the weird concept to me, because I shoot with celebrities, so to me that's really weird. And then also wherever what your environment looks like. So your you know, opportunity for a job also depends on what your living space is and whether that fits what they're looking for. It's kind of crazy to think that a job is now based on where you live and who you have quarantined with. So, you know, I have a child, I guess that's a bonus. I have a dog, you know, I have my mother and my stepfather, like that's a bonus, I guess. But if you're looking for a certain style, I don't have that, you know, so it's kind of bizarre, right? Where we're at right now. I mean, on one hand, it could be a great opportunity for some people, right? And then on the other hand, you may have two really talented photographers, but they look the part, or their house is more the style. And so then they get the job. And I mean, it's okay. I can do a shoot without an assistant. Like I have the, you know, I can do that, but it's not going to look the same as if I had hair, makeup, wardrobe.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's going to be a different thing. And I think it's a really interesting time right now. I mean, I shoot in entertainment, and I know studios and networks are trying to figure out how production's going to be. Like, how are they going to solve this problem? There's no way you can be 6 feet away from certain, I mean, an AC cannot be you know, there's no way, right? Like, so,
I mean,
you know,
hair and makeup, like, what?
I mean, if you wear a face shield and your hand and gloves, I don't know how makeup and hair are going to have to get used to working with gloves on, you know.
True. But
you
even
know,
like
a lot
brushes and like, there's so many, everything's different. I think it's navigating this water, and, you know, I think you're right. What you said, it's kind of like everything's based off of complete opposite of what it used to be.
So one of the things I'm like, okay, I have to shoot my space in a way that makes it look like a location. And I have to shoot, you know, my people in quarantine that looks like lifestyle photos or you know, and, you know, looks like the thing that we're going to be doing for a little bit. Who knows? It may change, you know, but I did hear a webinar where the advertising executive said, well, if you've been doing lifestyle, don't try to now all of a sudden be a tabletop photographer.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have the time to build up a portfolio, you know, but, you know, why not? But it's interesting to hear. Then I heard this other webinar where the advertising executive said, we want to see what's going on in your life right now. Shoot your life. Shoot what's going on, capture the time. But I think this is coming from also their clients not knowing what's, you know, everyone's just trying to figure it out right now. So on the one hand, I want to stay positive because, hey, look, we have kids, we can use the kids. Hey, we have the time to experiment, kind of. Lindsay, you seem to.
kind of have time, you know, like depends on the spelling test or whatever.
My goodness. Well, I'd love to, you guys, thank you so much for all these incredible thoughts. We're not done yet. I just wanted to maybe open it up to some of the questions, because I know that people have been asking great questions. So let's see. Claudia, do you want to help answer?
Yes. Yeah. We have some awesome questions, actually.
Okay, great.
So one from Jill, we have already touched on that a little bit, but it's kind of a two-part question. She's asking, do you think you ever lost jobs due to being pregnant? And the second part is, did you receive any negative treatment from men or women?
Where was the question?
Did you not hear it? Sorry. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. So the question from Jill was, do you think you ever lost jobs due to being pregnant? And the second was, did you receive negative treatment from men or women?
Does anyone want to answer that?
I don't think I personally lost any jobs or had any negative treatment, but I know that I personally was so negative that I didn't gain any jobs because when I was pregnant, I wasn't gaining clients or, winning anybody over.
I don't think that we lost any jobs. I think that's another benefit of being a duo. Like, even if people thought that I was incapable for whatever reason, like there's a guy right there. So just know that he'll be there. But I don't think that was an issue for us. I don't feel like I was treated negatively. I mean, people say weird stuff to you when you're pregnant and touch you a lot. But that's pretty much, that's pretty much the thing. Nothing negative, just weirdness.
I mean, except for not being able to travel, I don't think I lost out on any jobs. I didn't do a lot of meetings. I didn't want to do a lot of meetings, so that probably wasn't great in terms of overall. I think I got a lot of support. I think people were really amazing, I have to say. I thought that was, I mean, when I did tell people, it was I did hide it for a long time, but I think I was very supportive. It felt like a way to connect with, with other people who had gone through it or have kids in a way that's like shorthand, which I was like, oh, I feel more part of, now this world, I'm a part of it now, the parenting world. Look, I'm doing this series. One of the photos that was in the slideshow is a series that I'm doing called Parenting is Glamorous. And basically how you cannot be glamorous with children. It's like not possible, right? And so that like puts you on the same level with someone immediately when you've gone through being, diapers and vomit and, like all of a sudden you're like, there's just like a bonding you have with them. It's frustrating that men don't have to go through this same thing, that this is a male dominated field, but I also think things are changing a lot.
Yeah.
I think they're really changing. I loved seeing Rachel Morrison's photo. I know she's a DP, but when she was pregnant, I mean, that made me so happy.
That was the best photo of the year. Oh my God.
So, I hope I saw there's a question from a photo editor about the other side, and I'd really love to address that too, because it's not just us. I mean, we're a little more physical in our job, but all women have this who are working. I mean, all women go through this.
All women. Well, Elizabeth, that was great. Claudia, if you just want to read that question from Karen Alper, that would be a great.
Yeah. So Karen is saying, can someone speak to how most art buyers are women, and how do we encourage women to hire more women? Being a former photo editor, I know this is true. Men get more work, and it's women hiding womanhood from other women.
Do you want to continue with that, Elizabeth, at all, or?
I think having these discussions on a bigger scale, as much as we can, on a wider scale. I think if they start out on a small scale, getting it bigger and bigger, so it's not, one day we shouldn't have these panels. I mean, one day I don't want to talk about being a female photographer. One day I hope we don't have to talk about that it's just a photographer, I think all women, we all have the same struggle, hopefully, women who have the power to hire will, it's really I hate to say this, but it's kind of up to you. Like if you have two photographers and they're equally talented and you like them both and, they can both do the job, can you try to give the women a chance? Because historically we haven't had the chance. We can't get the experience if we don't have the chance, and I really do believe it's changing. I really do. And, we haven't addressed diversity in general. I think we're moving slowly, a little bit, toward a better place. But I definitely think in the last 4 years, I've seen way more. I like to follow women photographers on Instagram, and I've seen way more women shooting bigger and bigger projects. more covers, more ads. It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
You know, I think that we are moving in a good direction. So it's really, you know, up, I hate to say it, but it's up to those who have the power to use your voice as a way of being an activist, you know?
Totally agree. Lindsay or Fiona, do you have anything to add to that for that question? Or you don't have to, just asking.
I would agree. I mean, it's a really, you know, we hear how competitive it is all the time. And so any opportunity you can to spotlight or to encourage women and you know, help give them some voice, it's always the best thing to do, you know, like you said, follow other women, you know, like if something inspires you, share that, you know, like help people build, you know, together. Without community, like it's just, that's how you keep people down, unless you're willing to talk about it and spread it. And yeah, we really, there's a lot of us and we're really powerful, but we got to be willing to like raise our hands and promote each other and not be competitive.
And I need to say, hire women assistants, hire women digital tech,
Absolutely.
hire women, when you have the power to hire, do it.
Absolutely.
You know, it's really important. And I don't think we can move forward without that too.
I agree.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I agree with all of you. Like, just let's talk about it more. Let's be more out there. And, you know, thank you for your answer. But I also feel like, or your question, but I also feel like we're, you know, I'm looking to get hired, you know,
Right.
So I don't know why the art buyers aren't, you know, are choosing the men over the women. It's very interesting.
It is.
I think two things. They have more experience because we haven't been able to get the experience. So they have longer client lists. They have more, you know, that's just historic, right? And two, there's this notion that men can handle things, you know, which is crazy, especially when you are a working mother, how much you can handle.
Leads into Annika Howe. Claudia, I'm not trying to take over your questions, but maybe if you want to just comment on what Annika Howe.
Yeah, so she's asking, did you feel your priorities shifted in your career goals after having kids?
Oh, that one too. I guess I was talking about her next comment.
Okay.
Well, we're multitaskers.
Yeah, well, I mean, that wasn't really a question, but I can read that because it is a really important comment. So she's saying, first of all, this panel is incredible. Thank you all for speaking so candidly about pregnancy in this industry. As a producer, I feel like it might be impossible for me to be a mother and keep producing because of the demands of the industry and the misconceptions around motherhood. I have heard male photographers say they wouldn't hire a producer with kids because they can't work around the clock and be there for them solely, as if we women are not already super strong master multitaskers.
Amen.
Well, whoever is expecting you to produce around the clock 24/7, that sounds like a nightmare project. I hope they're paying you millions of dollars. Like, who does that? You know, it's like you'll figure out your life. Like, it should be based on your credentials and your abilities, you know, like that's a very personal thing to you. So if you're able to manage it, it doesn't really matter who cares, you know, whose right is it to know that you're a mother? It's not like you have to wear a badge that says that, unless you choose to because it's relevant for your work or you feel comfortable about putting that out there. But like, who cares? You don't need to know about me and my personal life and how I manage. Just know that I'm going to do the job. I'm going to get it done. And there you go.
Mm. Amen. Claudia, what's the next question?
So, I mean, Annika's actual question was, did you feel your priorities shifted in your career goals after having kids? I think that's very, very valid as well.
I don't think that my priorities shifted immediately after having kids. I wanted to get back to work. What type of work and how, that didn't really quite shift until a little bit later for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that my goals shifted at all. Like I said, I feel like we just, you know, like before when we had unlimited time, I honestly don't know what we were doing. Like, I have no idea why I'm not like super, you know, far in my career, because it's like how I had so much time, it was all mine. But I think the thing about being a mom is you learn to appreciate your time, and every second counts. And if I have 4 hours to do everything I need to do today, I'm going to figure that out. So I think it's made us take things more seriously and approach things differently. I have all of these years of experience working in advertising, and I, for some reason, compartmentalized all that learning and all of that knowledge, and didn't see it how it applied to, you know, doing art and making things that are beautiful. But they're hand in hand. You can't have art without making money. So like it's been a process of us learning, you know, like how can we take all of this stuff, how can we organize it, how can we divide and conquer, you know, like reevaluating how things are going, what approaches are working, what isn't, like who can we be reaching out to. So I think like I started to think smarter because my time was more valuable to myself.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add to that, or we can go on to the next question?
Go on.
Okay. Claudia?
Okay, so Roxanne is asking, do you think that in the end, all the sacrifices you made to be pregnant and have a child are all worth it? And do you agree that in the end, your child is one of your most important creations?
Hi, Mom. That's my mom.
Oh.
I was with the baby.
Yeah, having the kids, yeah, of course, has been the most important creation by far. I mean, could never imagine not having them or making that choice. You know,
Happy to hear
the kids, you know, they're the best. Even though they're jerks, they're the best.
Absolutely. Every hard day, you know, it is all worth it, because at the end, I mean, no matter what's happened, you know, no matter what insecurities or struggles we've had, like she is the thing that matters. And the fact that I get to see her every day, of course, like giving up career is worth it. You know, like all of those insecurities, all of those things that would have ever made me wait for that perfect moment that may or may not exist because I didn't wait for it. You know, like all of that's out the window because she's here and I love her so much, and she's so amazing. And you know, like going back to breastfeeding, like breastfeeding is like the most wonderful experience, and I don't mean that in like a cliche way. Like it honestly, if I'm having a stressful day, it is just me and her in that moment, and you know, you forget about all of the things that don't really matter. So I don't even remember what the original question was, but the sacrifices, yes, absolutely, everything is worth it. I couldn't imagine life without her.
Oh, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I mean, also, you know, just because I don't think it's a taboo subject, I'm open with the fact that it was IVF. That was a long process, not easy, and 1000% worth it, and the best thing that ever happened to me. And you know, I feel very blessed to have a son. I don't think there's any way I could have one more child. Like I physically can't, but like, I don't know how people have 2 children. I'm at my capacity. And so you know, all the power to you, Lindsay. I have a lot of respect for you. But I'm good right now.
That's wonderful. Thank you for your responses. I think we have a couple more questions.
We have 2 more questions. Natasha is asking specifically for Fiona, how are you able to shoot and edit with your 1-year-old at home? Are you guys taking shifts on the computer or with the set, doing it during her nap, or are you working at night?
So we're doing everything, all of those things. It's a little harder now during COVID, because the cool thing was that my husband could take Phaedra out to the park for like a couple hours, and like I would have the whole house to myself. But yeah, we're really just dividing time. We also divide the edition process. So Eduardo takes on the video projects and I take on the stills, so that, you know, a lot of the time these days it's a combination of the two. So that way we're able to sort of like break it up into pieces, which allows, you know, him to take on, you know, certain times, certain roles, and we can sort of switch things off. and on set, like that's how we always worked, was to take turns with the camera. So, you know, we, like I said, with clients, we don't really have our daughter on set, but like when we're testing, you know, one of us can be sort of like checking the lighting and doing all of those things and watching Phaedra while the other one's taking pictures. So it really is, it's just collaborating in that way. And her naps are a godsend. Like anytime she's sleeping, like that's when the bulk of the work gets done. Because even if Eduardo has her, like she always wants to come and say hi. So it's, you know, there's no guarantees there. And then like working at night, like I'm a little bit more of a morning person, but Eduardo's always been a night owl. So that is when we get a lot of like addition and stuff done, but that's more of a preference. It's not really something that we built in because of her. It's just sort of like, you know, like to have the quiet, it's when we can sort of have the juices going.
Amazing.
Great. And here's our last questions from Teresa. She's asking, as women, do you hire female assistants regularly?
Yes. 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 Right before COVID, I did a giant test shoot, and kind of we didn't plan it, but it was all women crew. So that was kind of a fun thing. Kind of realized that in the middle of it, like, oh yeah, it's all women here. But yeah, hire women as much as possible, of course. Yes. We're all strong and we can do the job.
We do. We also hire people of color. It's another thing that we like to do. It's important to us. Eduardo's from Mexico originally and had a really hard time entering when he moved here. Even in Mexico, he had a hard time getting into the industry because of the way that it works. There's, you know, egos and what have you. So based on his own struggle, like women, people of color, people who are traditionally held down, like we're always about empowering that.
That's wonderful. And Elizabeth, you hire a mixture?
Yeah. Yes, I try to make sure I hire women or LGBTQ or people of color as much as possible. I think, you know, there's only, I hate to say it, but especially when you're a mom, we're limited in as much, you know, in the kind of activism we'll have time to do, like in a day. And so every action kind of counts, like, and I think that's really, really, really important. I was also going to say digital checks too. You know, I try to have, I love it when I work, listen, I'm going to be honest, I do work with a lot of male assistants too, you know, but like it is a special kind of set when you have all women. I think it's pretty special.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, this was wonderful. I don't know if there's any other questions, but
we're good on the questions.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys are you women are incredible, and I feel so inspired by your answers, and feel a little bit more inspired to potentially have a child if I can. So thank you for giving me that reassurance, and I hope to everybody who's watching as well. Please, if you haven't, do submit your form so we can all stay in touch and support each other. I believe Jessica sent that form out, and this was just really special. I thank you again. You guys are wonderful. And if anyone who's watching, if you're not part of APA and you're curious and you want to know more, the information's up on the screen now, so please check out the links. And yeah, thank you guys. Happy Friday. This is such a wonderful weekend.
Whatever that is.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. You ladies are beautiful, and I appreciate all your words. So
thank you for having us, and thank you for watching. And it was all nice to meet all of you ladies and say hello, and thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Kezi. Thank you for organizing, you and Jessica and Travis, and thanks for everyone who participated. It's really great to feel like there's a sense of community.
Yeah.
So thank you.
More of this to come.